So, I guess I'm making a video about this, huh? Hi everyone, I'm Veridasune, and this is a video about the recent legendary Gauntlet from the mobile gacha game Pokemon Masters. I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Masters since its release in 2019. In fact, whenever there's new content, I try to stream it to my Twitch. I might even be live right now while you're watching. This video isn't intended as a primer to the Pokemon Masters game, though I'll try to explain any obscure concept the first time it comes up. I'm assuming that you're relatively up to date on Masters, but please leave any comments for things that are unclear. When trainers have multiple sync pair options, I'll try and be clear about which I'm referring to. Erica, for example, is available through the storyline of the game paired with Vileplume, or by using a Battle Point sync pair voucher paired with Tangela, and has two outfits, Signasuit Erica, where Signasuits are often referred to as SS, and Holiday Erica. The main player character, however, has access to a whole horde of Pokemon partners beyond their initial partner Pikachu, once encountered in the storyline, that being Torchic and Solgaleo, or from Super BP vouchers, Cobalion and Regirock. I'm of course referring to Eggmons. Whenever Eggmons come up, I'll try and specify the class of Eggmon I'm meaning, Strike, Tech, or Support, but will otherwise just use the Pokemon's name. Beyond the basic gameplay of Masters, there's tons more to sync pairs, like sync grids, trainer skills, lucky skills, and theme skills. So if you're interested in this in more depth, I recommend checking out some of the other videos on this topic, or the resources I've linked in the description of the video. One thing that I will explain is that later I'll be referring to some specific skills, either from sync grids or trainer skills, that provide a general buff to sync attacks. Here's a list of those now. The main components of Legendary Gauntlets are the Legendary Arenas. Legendary Arenas are played as 3v1 battles, with the ability to use multiple teams of 3 sync pairs at a time, and up to 30 sync pairs total over the whole battle. These are challenging boss fights where there are certain defenses or strategies in place that make the fights more difficult. Also, the legendary Pokemon has 3 health bars. Yeah. Special things will often happen when you reduce the legendary Pokemon to half of a health bar, and also after a health bar is cleared, like give themselves buffs or set up certain moves, clear status conditions or healing, and many other things. So what then is the legendary Gauntlet? The Gauntlet is just that, a successive gauntlet against 3 different legendary arenas at once. For the first legendary Gauntlet, these legendary Pokemon were Entei, Cobalion, and Azelf. Defeating one of these legendary arenas with any number of Pokemon, as I said before up to 30 max, would count as a clear. After clearing a legendary arena, you could not clear it again until you had cleared all 3 available arenas, refreshing them for new battles. No sync pair could be used in the entire gauntlet more than once, so if you take 15 sync pairs on your next round of beating up Cobalion, none of them could be used in your next clears. Each clear gave substantial rewards up to the 11th clear, where the rewards would continue at the same rate ad infinitum. This leads to an obvious question. Just how far can you go in the gauntlet? The Pokemon Masters Twitter seemingly gives us this answer. The longest streak from all players of Pokemon Masters was a whopping 80 clears. However, only 30% of the player base went beyond 10 wins, including me. I managed a streak of 24 wins, 8 wins against each of Entei, Cobalion, and Azelf. But in trying to prepare for this gauntlet, I was very much interested in trying to maximize my streak. In the end, my worst enemy was likely poor team structure and a lack of time. But my hope was that documenting the longer streaks of other players might help me find trios I hadn't yet tried, sync pairs that I hadn't considered in ages, and combinations that could bring the best results. So, I started a spreadsheet. Big mistake, or huge blessing? After fixing up many errant spelling errors, and searching out the best ways to format and manipulate cells in Google Sheets, I now stand before you with what I hope is an interesting deep dive into the sync pairs used in the first legendary gauntlet. This information may come in handy for upcoming future gauntlets, including certain sync pairs to invest in, and some sync pairs which might help in general to extend your streak. So without further ado, and without further delay, considering how long I've been going so far, here is a summary of streaks of size 24 or more against the very first legendary gauntlet. With a few caveats. First of all, this dataset is always going to be very, very incomplete. For some of the runs here, I just don't have each and every morsel of information. Some players only posted 1 team for each clear, and indicated a subset of their clears had additional unnamed sync pairs. Others didn't completely specify their Eggmons, so I either had to make assumptions or leave these unspecified. Beyond this, I can only go off the information I have, which is mostly Reddit community posters. And even then, I'm not entirely sure I've gotten everyone. Let me know if your runs fill in some of my data. In total, I gathered 27 streaks from 25 users. Thank you for the double data duty, Lopsided Shine 663, and Singasaur. The largest clear was a 62 streak from Lopsided Shine 663. On top of all of this, with how I was annotating Eggmons, it was tricky to get perfect team composition data. So all that being said, please take this analysis with a grain of salt. It's mostly for fun and partially to see what some of these massive runs contained. Moving past the limited dataset problem, I tried to standardize all of the Pokemon by using their most evolved forms, both for sync pairs and Eggmons. And again, there is every chance I still made small entry errors. Most of the time I was updating this document late at night before I went to sleep, in a deep data trance. Must enter sync pair plus partner Pokemon. What was I saying? Right, so all that being said, for real this time, I'd like to explore the results I found, starting with what was probably the easiest legendary arena of the three, Entei. Entei is a water-weak legendary arena and very vulnerable to flinching. It sets up physical and special damage reduction shields, like Light Screen and Reflect, at the start of each health bar. On the third health bar, Entei will launch a heat wave that guarantees burns on all sync pairs, and at half health on this last bar starts using Sacred Fire to continue to apply the burn effect if you manage to heal it off. Obviously, this means that water pairs and flinching pairs are in big demand, as well as critical strike buffs. Coming in at third most used, it's Chris, with 24 uses. One of the earlier water-type 5-star sync pairs added to the game, Chris is still a solid damage dealer, and her sync grid added in September 2020 really helped her build up her sync attack to be even stronger through Haymaker. At second most used, we have a tie between May and Barry at 25 uses each. May is the highest tech pair on the list, and for good reason. With her rain dense and powerful sync attack, especially at 6EX, she can decimate Entei's health bars with ease. Barry, by contrast, can utilize strong sync attacks through Inertia and Cakewalk. As a free pair from the story that can be raised to 6EX, it's no wonder so many players were using him for clears. Now, sharing the most uses for Entei, we have Cyrus and Signasuit Grimsley, with every single run using both of these sync pairs. For Cyrus, it's easy to see why. He's a free pair from Legendary Adventures, and is a powerful force with a Hydro Pump focused grid, using rain support from either Eggmon Blastoise or Winona. SS Grimsley is in the general 5-star pool like Chris, but definitely has faster buffing and deals strong damage with Inertia. Both Cyrus and SS Grimsley are obviously tied as the highest strike pairs too. Unsurprisingly, Hilbert rounds out the top pairs as the highest support sync pair, with 18 users. As a water support with Waterfall and great buffs in speed, attack, and crit from his grid, he can fill many niches and even help Eggmons push through against Entei. Equally as unsurprising is Blastoise as the top Eggmon for Entei battles, with 16 uses, 14 of which were confirmed Tech Blastoises and 1 confirmed Strike, which was ahead of even Pikachu and Torchic in the scope of main character aligned Pokemon. In terms of common teams, 4 players all use the following trios on Entei: Glacier, Steven, and Tech Magneton, and Emmet, Kukui, and Kabutops. This isn't too surprising, as Steven and Kukui, at 3 out of 5 sync level, are good flinching sync pairs, even if Steven and Emmet aren't as common as their Pokefairs. Karen, Torchic, and Wallace were brought 3 times to this match, with Karen supplying the flinches, Wallace acting as the main damage dealer, and Torchic providing some buff support for both sync pairs. So were Acerola, Cynthia, and support Marowak, with Marowak giving some ground-type theme skills and helpful buffs to Cynthia, and Acerola bringing the Sandstorm and flinches for some big damage. Finally, Bea, Caitlyn, and Lycia were also brought 3 times to Entei, with Lycia using Defog on screens and providing flinch support with Twister. Caitlyn is a great tank with Catalytic Cure as well. Both Cobalion and Azelf are a step up from Entei in terms of difficulty. Cobalion is a fire-weak Pokemon. It also has Healthy Advantage 8, which reduces the damage it takes from attacks and sync moves unless it has a status condition. This means that sleeping, paralyzing, poisoning, freezing, and burning Cobalion was a must to do any sort of considerable damage to it. Of course, when Cobalion reaches half health or loses a whole health bar, it is cured from its status. On the second and third HP bars, it even cures status on sync. And even on top of all of that, each time it cures itself of a status, except when moving between HP bars, it gains incremental resistance to that status, eventually reaching full immunity. It's important to note that Cobalion starts with resistance to some statuses, namely strong resistance to poison and burn, and some weak resistances to paralysis, sleep, and freezing. Sync pairs that can inflict status, and especially multiple kinds of status, are in high demand for Cobalion's legendary arena, as well as strong fire-type sync pairs. The third most used sync pair on Cobalion is Signasuit Red with 24 uses. The pinnacle of fire-type sync pairs, SS Red was one of the most highly anticipated pairs in the game, and he is no joke on the field itself. With Haymaker in his grid and the Charizard X Mega Evolution at his disposal, he can be used as both a mixed attacker or just a straight up special attacker with a strong sync attack. Second most used are a huge three-way tie between Erika with Vileplume, Serena, and Hilda, each getting 25 uses. Hilda is an impressive force with inertia in her grid, and attack buffs tied to that buff speed. Serena is the ultimate for Cobalion, being a tech fire type sync pair with access to Hypnosis for sleeping Cobalion, and dealing out the damage. Erika, on the other hand, is a great tank in her own right, especially in sunny weather, and she can help put on the hurt with special defense debuffs. She's often seen with Lyra, Blaine, or Tech Ninetales to get that sweet, sweet sun. Or with the most used sync pair for Cobalion, Silver. Every trainer used Silver in their clears, and it's obvious why, as a free unit through Legendary Adventures that changes the weather to sunny every time it syncs. This unit powers itself. The highest rated support was Lieutenant Surge with Raichu at 21 uses. Lieutenant Surge offers accurate Thunder Waves for paralysis as well as team attack, defense, and crit buffs, greatly appreciated by sync pairs like Hilda or Alessa. The top used Eggmon was Exeggutor at 10 uses, 7 of which were confirmed tech, which is behind the main character themselves with Pikachu at 15 uses, but just ahead of Torchic's usage. Exeggutor is a great user of Hypnosis as it comes with Troublemaker 1 already built into its kit, allowing for near-accurate sleep every time. There were a number of equally used 3-pair teams that showed up against Cobalion, including Flannery, James, and Wickstrom, Calum, Gloria, and Hop, Erika, Vileplume, Lyra, and Silver, and Erika, Vileplume, Lyra, and Ethan. Obviously the two Erika teams are rather straightforward. The Flannery, James, and Wickstrom team take advantage of James's poison and self-sustain, as well as Flannery's burn and powerful sinks. Calum is good with paralysis, with Hop helping support Gloria through a number of shared theme skills. The two of them have strong attacks, especially if Cobalion manages to clear status with a sync attack, as they then get a buff to their own attack. The final legendary arena in this first legendary gauntlet is Azelf. Azelf is rather straightforward compared to Cobalion, but I would say it is about on par or a little bit easier than it. Azelf is a bug-weak Pokemon. The attacks from Azelf debuff your defense and special defense, and in general these drops have a greater effect on the whole in the battle. That means against Azelf too. Additionally, during the first half of each HP gauge, Azelf has resistance to physical attacks, switching to resist special attacks in the second half of the gauge. This ramps up by the third HP gauge to include sync attacks, physical sync attack resistance in the first half of the third HP bar, and special resistance on the second half. Bug sync pairs are few and far between, so people often relied on off-typing this arena more than the others. However, there will be no surprises for the types in the top 3. Coming in at number 3 is Burr, with 22 uses. Burr is a good pair in the general pool, who can debuff Azelf's special defense and try to hit through the second half of the bar with Smarty Pants buff sync attacks until the last bar. Ahead of Burr in second place is Lusamine with 23 uses. Lusamine is great for this legendary arena, with Lunge and Bug Buzz available for tackling both attack resistances. She also has the option for special defense drops on Bug Buzz too. She requires a good amount of support to keep alive, as she goes down to a light breeze though. But at the top of the charts, it's your boy Guzma with 26 uses. Guzma is a great damage dealer with a pretty complete attack buffing kit, so supports can stick to just buffing defenses and healing as necessary. With no quarter on his grid, he can always guarantee a 5-hit Pim Missile as well, which racks up massive critical hits. Since these are all strike pairs, let's have a look at the highest tech and support sync pairs used for Azelf. Another 3-way tie here, this time for the top tech pairs, with Viola, SS Renegade Cynthia, and Champion Iris all topping the tech list at 15 uses. Apparently they just wanted to give me the longest names up front. SSR Cynthia is a huge hitting pair, often in joint combination with Anniversary Lily for that Ghost Zone synergy. Champion Iris leans into the stat drops with her double drop ability, doubling any status drop. Pretty self-explanatory, especially when she has attack, special attack, and even defense drops if you give her defense drop 2 as a lucky skill. Viola's a great bug-type sync pair with good longevity and powerful syncs when the opponent is trapped. With good support, she can even handle Azelf herself. Speaking of supports, Sycamore was the most used support on Azelf's Legendary Arena at 19 uses. As a free sync pair from Legendary Adventures with a sync attack that buffs special attack, special defense, and speed, he is critical in keeping up those special defense buffs in the face of Azelf's debuffing. Additionally, he has access to Impervious on his grid to avoid those defense drops. Exeggutor brought more Hypnosis to Azelf, tying as the most used Eggmon with Scyther, both used 13 times. Exeggutor was always tech against Azelf, while Scyther had 10 strike uses and 2 support uses. Strike Scyther is one of the best Eggmons from an attacking sense, with critical strike buffs already in its kit and even the option to be shiny. Both were the most used main character pairs, ahead of Pikachu and Torchic in the rankings. The most common teams brought to Azelf were Bugsy with Scyther, Guzma and Ramos, and Bugsy with Scyther, Guzma and Tick Victory Bell, both used 3 times each. These two teams are almost effectively the same. Your choice of Victory Bell to keep sleep up, Bugsy to drop defense, and Guzma to smash through with big sync attacks. Bugsy with Scyther was tied as the second most common support, along with Leaf at 17 uses each, due to his bug typing and ability to debuff Azelf while providing move gauge acceleration, crit buffs, and attack buffs to sync pairs. So now looking at the Gauntlet on the whole, what information do we still have left to uncover? We've seen in terms of individual legendary arenas that Cyrus, SS Grimsley, and Silver were brought to all legendary Gauntlet clears I have on hand. However, some previously mentioned and unmentioned tech and support pairs were also brought to every Gauntlet clear. Topping the tech ranks, Serena stands tall as the only tech pair brought to every Gauntlet clear. It's no surprise why, she was already in the top pairs against Entei. Turns out the only reason she wasn't at the very top was 2 players bringing her to Azelf to grab a few more clears there with secure sleep status. In terms of supports, the most all-rounded support award goes to Morty and Mismagius. What a pair, with their double defense buffing, flinch in the form of Astonish, and potion support for healing. Morty was used 13 times against Azelf, 9 times against Entei, and 5 times against Cabalion. Equally supportive was Hilbert, one of the best all-round buffers in the game. Both he and Morty were used in every clear, with Hilbert obviously topping the supports against Entei at 18, 5 more uses on Azelf, and 4 more uses against Cabalion. Eggmons were vital to pull out more and more wins in the Legendary Gauntlet, which is why I've paid particular attention to them in my analysis. The top used Eggmons were Executor with 24 uses, 20 of which were confirmed tech. No surprise here, with Executor being a great use of Hypnosis. It was used the same amount of times as Torchic and more than Pikachu. Victory Bell, another sleep applying pair, next appears on the list at 20 uses, 17 of those confirmed tech. This puts it equal with Pikachu's uses in the Gauntlet. Next is Venusaur, yet another sleep user, with access to near perfect sleep powders like Victory Bell. It was used 17 times, 13 confirmed tech, which puts it even behind Solgaleo, used for its Sunsteel strike move that hits through Azelf and Cabalion's defenses. It appeared equally as often as Blastoise, whose 17 times were all contained as mentioned before against Entei. Rounding out the list we have Dragonite at 15 uses, with 14 support uses and 1 tech use by, me actually. Scyther was also used 15 times, with those extra times it was not brought to Azelf being a support Scyther on Cabalion by Little Wailord, and a tech Scyther on Entei by Singasaur. There was one more team used 3 or more times, now against multiple legends. The other trio that appeared thrice was Acerola, Ingo, and Olivia, used twice against Entei and once against Azelf. Sandstorm uses and Olivia go together very well to get massive damage off against opponents, with Ingo really helping to buff the team, and Acerola providing flinches through Astonish. One final note for this section, sleep users are vital for clears like this, and it's no surprise they were in hot demand. Serena already was used in every clear, but beyond that, both Elio and Agatha had 25 uses, Executor as mentioned at 24, Ramos 23, Victory Bell 20, and Venusaur 17 as above. Sleep chaining is a very powerful tactic, but there are plenty of other videos on the topic should you want to search that out. Of course, something that can be just as interesting is the pairs that aren't brought to events like this, and surprisingly these were few and far between. As far as I know from the data I have on hand, out of all the non-Eggmon pairs in the game, only 3 were not used at all: BP Karen, Roxy, and Regirock. Regirock is definitely the dark horse of the Master BP pairs, with Evelyn used 8 times and Cabalion used 6. One might say there are more available rock supports that are effective than fighting supports, and Evelyn has the bonus of being a completely different sync pair than the main character. Roxy's poison typing and lack of grid likely contributed to her lack of use here, while BP Karen's recoil through Double Edge definitely leaves much to be desired. 4 Eggmons remained unused completely: Arcanine, Dugong, Golem, and Rapidash. There were a few pairs that were only used once, including Palentine's Bee, likely due to her new release near the end of the event, Lysander, Costume Guzma, Jessie, and Fall Morty. Additionally, Raticate, Beedrill, and Lapras were only used once each as Eggmons. So with all this data, what can we say about the upcoming Legendary Gauntlet, featuring Moltres, Uxie, and Latias? Let's have a look at some insights into what could be important to focus on for each of these 3 legendary arenas. Moltres is all about weather. Weather is permanent for both allies and opponents in this legendary arena, and Moltres wants that sweet, sweet sun to try and get all the benefits it needs. Moltres is weak to rock and water on separate bars, which makes these types of pairs ideal to take it down. However, expect a lot of ice teams in Hail to be used for this particular legendary arena too. Weather is vital in this gauntlet, so expect to see everyone bring all their weather setters. From rain setters like Winona, May, and Archie, to hail setters like Candace, Summer Steven, Holiday Nessa, Palentine's Bee, and Holiday Rosa at a stretch, and sandstorm setters like Acerola, Ingo, and Anniversary Raihan. Essential Eggmons include all 3 non-sun weather setters, Blastoise for rain, Lapras for hail, and Kabutops for sandstorm. Flinchers like Alakazam and sleepers like Exeggutor are going to also be viable choices here. One thing to note is that it may be more viable to use these weather setters outside of strong rock and water pairs, and instead pair them with sync pairs that are weaker but still viable. Rock pairs like Emmett and Olivia may shine the best without needing to change the weather, freeing up the sandstorm users for other off-type sync pairs like Cynthia or Caitlyn, or weaker rock types like Grant or Brock. Anniversary Steven gets a special mention here as the only sync pair that can just straight up remove the weather. If you think that maybe fire types in the sun are going to be a viable choice, you might need to think again. Moltres is just insurmountable while the sun is up. With 2 fire guards, Solar Shield preventing status, Sunny Disposition preventing stat drops, Sunny Piercing Gaze preventing evasion strategies, and Sunny Daze dropping defense with every hit, it would require a reliance on lots of sync attacks and some incredible tanks to get through. On the second health bar, it gains Sunburn 9, which ensures its attacks leave a burn in sun. It may be possible with non-fire types that get sun boosts, like Grass teams, Professor Oak with Weather Surge, or Zinnia and Rayquaza teams with good support, but flinch spam will only take you so far in this fight. Uxie, a Ghost Week legendary arena, is very similar to Cambalion. In fact, you could almost consider the limitations the same, except for one slight addition or twist. For the first and third HP bars, Uxie has healthy healing, which like Cambalion decreases the damage Uxie takes from attacks if it is not affected by a status condition. However, on HP bars 2 and 3, Uxie has acute senses, which decreases the damage Uxie takes from attacks if it is not affected by interference or status changes like flinching, wrapping, or being restrained. When it heals from these conditions, usually at half of the health bar or sometimes on sync, it gains resistance to those conditions. Definitely expect to see Anniversary Lily dominate this section, like Anniversary N dominated Cambalions. At least for the people who have them. Additionally, Signasuit Renegade Cynthia and Morty with Drifblim will likely be used here for strong attacking potential. Strong hitting pairs and status conditions will be essential, with the previously mentioned sleeper units like Agatha and Ramos likely seeing strong use here. Fall Acerola is a great ghost choice who applies Confusion for the second health bar, and Alistair has strong sync moves that also restrain the opponent, and yes, Restrain is a status change, bring your Nessas and Selines! Some sync pairs have both status conditions and status changes, like Serena with Hypnosis and Fire Spin, BP Erica and Tangela with Infestation and Toxic, Tech Kangaskhan a little unreliably with Body Slam and Stomp, Tech Venomoth with Stun Spore and Infestation, and the current Tech Snorlax with Body Slam and Headbutt. I would expect most of these to be used here. One of the few legendary arenas as a full 3v3, Latias with Flygon and Alakazam is a Dragon, Fairy, and Dark Weak battle. For the first health bar, Latias is weak to Dragon-type attacks, and then for bars 2 and 3 it is Fairy weak. Flygon is Dragon Weak, and Alakazam is Dark Weak. Latias has Fluid Fortification, which decreases the damage it receives when its stats are raised, but increases further the damage it takes when its stats are lowered. On the second health bar and beyond, every time Latias is hit, Latias' evasion decreases, but it increases whenever it dodges a move. Expect to see Champion Iris all over this, especially since her banner has gotten a rerun shortly before the next Gauntlet. Her stat reductions are boosted for this match. Fairy and Dragon pairs will also be getting use here, especially 6EX strikers like Diantha, Signasuit Leon, and Lance, since they have more utility here than in other arenas where the power of 6EX tech pairs may be more ideal. Since stat changes are the lay of the land here, expect lots of stat-stealing pairs to be all over this arena. SS Misty and Bryson provide haste support, while Grimsley and Lear both have Snatch. There are many sync pairs and Eggmons that drop stats, like Alda, Karen and Houndoom, Mina, Nanu, Tech Lickitung, Tech Scyther, and many, many more. Highly recommend taking a look at the Eggmon Compendium by Zimfigel in the description and searching defense debuffs. Sync pairs that gain a buff when stats are dropped, like Anniversary N, Dawn, Durak, Getsis, Mallow, Diantha, Summer Marnie, and Alda might see more use here. For me, the Legendary Gauntlet was a great experience, though I recognise it's not for everyone. My hope is that with some of these tips and ideas, more people might be able to clear the next Legendary Gauntlet and get some of those rewards like the special lucky cookies, 5-star coins, and 5-star power-up tickets. Also for the next Gauntlet, I'd love to do another deep dive like this, but this was a huge undertaking and I'm still trying to figure out the best way to collect information for the next one. Other people making Google Sheets were usually the easiest way for me to get some of the information in, but I'd love to make something you could fill in as you went for the easiest possible way in the future. As if I have time for that. For now, stay masterful, and I'll see you in the next video, whenever that's going to be. Thanks for watching! Can't believe I just talked for 30 minutes about Pokemon Masters. I hope you enjoyed.